Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today, my guest is Heather Finton. She's a Canadian writer from the Yukon near Alaska. Her first book, Generous Living, was published in 1996. Her poems have been published in several journals and online zines. Poetry flows through her spiritual practice, supported by her passion for articulating possibilities to enliven community. She uses natural and household images to reflect the bliss and pain of our shared journeys. Some are found at http://www.heatherfinton.com. Heather has enjoyed a full life, including as a mother, radio journalist, cabinet media advisor, management consultant, co-founder of the Northern Cultural Expression Society, and co-owner of Sundog Retreat. I want to welcome to our show today, Heather Finton. Heather?
Hi, great to be here.
Well, I'm just so delighted to have you on our show. Heather, I would like you to tell our audience a lot about Sundog Retreat.
Okay, well, we are a small inn. We're located in northern Canada, just outside of Whitehorse, which is near the Alaska border, and we've done a lot of things here over the years. We operate primarily as a tourism business, so we welcome international guests. A lot of them come in the wintertime to see northern lights and find out about dog sledding and ice fishing and snowshoeing, and a lot of them are coming from warm countries, so this will be their first experience of winter. And then we also have a lot of summertime guests who are often either heading to Alaska or coming to the Yukon because they've always wanted to come here, and they spend time in our cottages and just really get to know our local community. We've also done other things here at Sundog Retreat because we have a large meeting space, and because of the kind of people that we are, we've offered the space up for different kinds of workshops that happen here as well, and that's been a real privilege to be part of.
You know, you run a small business from your home. You have 2 teenage boys, and you've been married for 25 years. How has your home life influenced your work?
You know, it's interesting. I've certainly, of course, treasured my roles as a wife and as a mother and as a business owner and leading a staff team. But as I turned into my 40s, I began to notice how all of that was crowding out my inner space. And I hadn't figured out, I think it's natural for a lot of women and a lot of people, is that, we spend a lot of time in our 20s and 30s and early 40s kind of building up who it is we want to be in the world. And then there's this kind of funny process where we have to start taking it apart or looking at it differently. And for me, that process, I was so grateful that it was really helped by the gift of my poems. So I can use my poems as a way of, kind of a means of self-expression and learning. And then I'm finding that because so much of our journeys on this planet are, have lots of common threads, there are people and women particularly who are finding the words I write to be helpful to them too.
Your poetry is linked to your spiritual practice. Can you tell me about your writing process?
Sure. Because of my lifestyle, I often have to write fairly quickly in the mornings before everybody else gets up. And I'm grateful that the poems kind of arrive quickly and spontaneously. And a lot of times my poems are so linked to what it is I'm experiencing either in my life or in my meditation practice. I'll just read an example of what we're talking about in terms of my poems.
Okay.
No words for this body. Memories loosely strung on flowing wires. Discomfort and pleasure stretched on a network of time. Not the wires or feelings, not sensation or data. There is a white puff, briefly, more distant and more loving than a sigh.
Oh, that's very, very beautiful. You know, some of your poems are very joyful and full of light, but others are really stark and raw. Can you talk about this and tell us why you chose that poem in particular?
Yeah, I mean, that poem is actually a fairly kind of an expansive poem, kind of an open poem. Some of my poems are a lot more difficult. They're kind of harsh because we all go through very dark moments, and I think part of what I'm learning is that the more I can actually open to some of those dark moments, the more I find the richness, you know, the deeper sense of being alive. And I think a lot of us spend time trying to be positive, trying to be outgoing, and you know, keep our spirits light instead of dark, which is important. But I think to be really alive, we also just have to relax into the fact that that both sides are part of it, and that we really need to touch into the stuff that hurts, or the stuff that feels uncomfortable, or the stuff that's kind of embarrassing. And sometimes in my writing process, that's where I'm at. So I'm in some tough places, and what I'm enjoying is the fact that I'm getting braver about putting that into words and sharing that with my friends, and helping my friends, you know, relax into their own difficult stories. Not to make the difficulties sort of where we get stuck, but actually just to let them have some space, and they can more easily move through and teach us what they need to teach us.
Heather, you live in northern Canada, and it must have a tremendous influence on your work. Is it because the part of Canada that is dark, it's not a light and airy place, is it?
Yeah, living where I live has been an incredible privilege. I think I have the best living room windows in the world, because I look out onto a landscape that changes all the time. Like we have at this time of year in June, we have almost 24-hour sunlight. So we're looking outside at midnight and it's bright out there. On the other hand, in December, we're looking outside at 10 o'clock in the morning and it's dark out there, and we have beautiful, you know, dark skies and lots of shining stars and northern lights. So, and the extremes of temperature, of course, we have, you know, I'm wearing shorts right now, and in wintertime it can be 40 below. Oh. So there's no way that I can't be shaped by the natural world around me. And again, some of my poems are definitely the result of that privilege of being able to be so close to nature. May I read another one?
Please, if you would. And give us a poem that is very joyful.
Sure. And this one's also about the natural, it's about learning from the natural world around us. Act like a tree. Just stand for a bit with your roots sucking juice from the endless earth. Let your branches be moved by whatever dance the wind has chosen. Know that your purpose has more to do with transforming, changing the quality of air around you by the fact of your need for it. Listen more to the sound of the sap as it moves within than any other clamor. Act like a tree, no matter the shape or season. Notice how you become, even as you stand unchanged.
You know, Heather, this is a very interesting and very joyful poem. And, you know, when did you really recognize yourself as a poet? Because it's such a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. It really cures, I think, some of the feelings of depression. And you said, of course, you have to tap into the dark side, but when you read a poem like this to me, I just float in air because it is very beautiful.
And I think I am finally, it's taken a while. You know, I wrote as a young woman, I wrote as a child, and then I wrote as a teenager, and I was always slightly embarrassed about that part of myself. I mean, I certainly didn't ever advertise myself as a poet. And it's only been in the last, probably about the last 5 years, where I started noticing how much of the learning I like to do, which is, you know, I'm very interested in different spiritual teachers, and you know, I've been lucky to have various opportunities for learning. And you know, so often different teachers would actually be quoting poems, and it struck me that, you know, they weren't embarrassed about calling on poets for help when they were teaching, and it really helped me realize, okay, I don't need to hide this. It's a beautiful gift. It's an offering, and now it's something I'm happy about. But for a long time, it was more like, well, I don't even want to compare it to, you know, but some kind of hobby that wasn't, you know, like I used to tease. This is no offense to people who like macrame, but I used to say it was kind of like the macrame of arts, you know, that I felt sort of embarrassed about it, but not anymore. So that's been nice to just sort of welcome that part.
Well, my guest today is Heather Finton, a Canadian writer from the Yukon near Alaska. And I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk further with Heather.
When visiting Delray Beach, cool off with a delicious treat with FY&I Frozen Yogurt and Ice Cream Shop. They're located on 9 Northeast 2nd Avenue, Pineapple Grove, Delray Beach, Florida. FY&I offers more than 20 flavors of ice cream, frozen yogurt, Italian gelato, sorbet, protein shakes, and more. They also cater birthday parties and for any special occasion. Enjoy these delicious treats in our breezy, kid-friendly cafe. That looks good. Can Mommy have a taste? Whoops! Can't make up your mind? Say the magic words, "Susan sent me," and receive a free small cone of frozen ice cream or yogurt. Be sure to visit FY&I Frozen Yogurt and Ice Cream Shop in beautiful Delray Beach. They're open Monday through Thursday and on Sundays from 11:30 every morning to 11 p.m. at night. And every Friday and Saturday from 11:30 to 1 a.m. in the morning. For store hours, call 561-450-7402. That's 561-450-7402. This commercial is brought to you in conjunction with the Susan Brender Show and FY&I Frozen Yogurt and Ice Cream Shop. See you there.
Okay, we're back now. And Heather, you talk about your first book, Generous Living, which was published all the way back in 1996. You haven't mentioned whether you've written anything else.
Well, I haven't, as I say, most of my attention for the last few decades has been on my various careers and my family life and my own personal learning. I have actually put together 3 different collections, and I have a 4th on the way. They are not published at this point, but I do share them with a, I have a readership. It's fairly small at this point, but they are certainly readers who I cherish because they give me lots of feedback about how much these poems mean to them, and that has been just a really unexpected gift. I also put my poems on, some of them go on my blog, and I enjoy the opportunity to share them, and I'm certainly making space in my life for more opportunities.
You have children, and you write poetry. Do they find it interesting?
Sometimes, yeah. They are getting more and more curious and willing to share. I write my poems often in the morning before I have to wake them for the school bus. And it is interesting how sometimes I'm like a lot of women these days. I feel sometimes like I don't have very much time. But when we make time's kind of stretchy. So it can be kind of elastic when we need it to be. And there are moments where maybe I've set myself half an hour or 45 minutes for myself in the morning. And maybe I've done a little bit of yoga and a little bit of meditation. And I look at the clock and it's like, okay, I got 9 minutes before I got to wake the kids. And sometimes, I guess I would almost say often, a poem will arise in that 9 minutes, and I will be able to, give life to that poem and then go wake the kids. And I know a lot of authors and writers spend a lot more time articulating than I have. I don't have that kind of time. So it's been a real delight that the poems are a way of, they're an art form that for some reason has managed to find itself in my busy life.
And it's interesting that you mention, again, your children and the fact that you have so little time. Do you spend some time with the kids giving them a little bit of inspiration by giving them a poem to write themselves, or giving them some information that would inspire them to write a poem?
I think the information, I mean, certainly as they get older, they're now teenagers, so I really understand that, it's my job to be present for them with all of myself, like to be as sort of spiritually or fully creatively present with them as I can be, which is a challenge because sometimes I just want them to pick up their socks. But it's been, because I'm settling down into my own creative energy, it also helps me encourage that in them. They're not necessarily poets, but they, one son is a filmer and my other son is a builder. He loves to build all kinds of stuff. And it's been great to sort of recognize the importance of creative time and spiritual time in my life, and encourage them to find their own roots to that. I think it's really important.
Oh, yeah. I would have to agree with you. And is it a lost art, though? Poems are something that generations ago were very important, but now it seems that it may be a lost art. Am I wrong about that?
It's interesting. I don't consider myself a literary poet. Like, I'm not. I think there are many people who understand a lot more about poetry as a form, and that's not my gift. What I am seeing is that where I've been privileged to be part of circles of people, and sometimes it's co-ed and sometimes it's women, but people who are engaging more deeply in their desire to live in a sort of fully realized way, and a lot of times those circles do involve meditation or singing or other ways of just being together simply. I'm noticing that people are bringing poems to those circles, and people are sharing poems in that way. Just speaking them out loud in a circle of other people, and that really brings me joy. So I don't think it's a dying art form at all. And certainly with, what I would say younger people. I mean, it's not just younger people, but there's a lot of energy around the whole spoken word movement, which is, very, very much alive, and also, both beautiful and courageous to see people playing with language and playing with their innermost beliefs and getting them out there.
Your community is very important to you. I can hear it as you talk about sharing things with other people. How do you use your poems to strengthen the community?
I think it's just this act of being willing to share, to not hide what our gifts are, and so that speaks to anybody who's hearing this, not just somebody who might be a writer or a poet or a spoken word artist, but people who know what they're good at and want to share that. In terms of me and using the poems to strengthen community, I've been lucky to have my poems picked up by friends who are using them, for example, in yoga classes, or with their friends, or maybe having a cup of tea with a friend and sharing a poem. So, and I have actually more recently been involved again in larger circles like retreats or other places where I've been able to share a poem with a larger crowd. And I was actually at a political gathering last year and shared a poem, which is that's kind of edgy. It's not very I had to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone there, but again, it's because the people in the room are not just political animals. They were people who I had a connection with and I cared for, and so I think offering the poem in that context helped us all remember that it's not just about issues, it's about people and being in the room too.
We've talked about so many different things, but one of the things that we haven't spoken about is vitality. What does vitality mean to you? Remember that my show was based on the fact that vitality, very often the arts transform you in ways you can't even describe. And with that said, vitality is a very important thing to feel. So what does vitality mean to you?
Vitality means being connected to the life force. And for a long time, I thought it meant something that I didn't have. I thought it meant being perky and sexy and glowing and really positive all the time. And I would catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror some days, and I'd be like, oh my God, like, you seriously need some vitality, and it's not happening. And what's been nice for me to learn is that vitality is all those things, but it is also much richer than that. And it actually has to do with being fully alive and being present with life. So life isn't always fun. And the more that I've been able to just open up, almost like embrace it all, and sort of genuinely the mucky stuff, that has really brought me into deeper connection with my own life. And the exciting thing is that, there is more joy that flows from that. There is more beauty that flows from that. But it's a lot richer than I first thought. And my doorway in has been through not trying to fight the hard stuff, but kind of letting down my guard. I have a poem that it's a little bit longer, but it does kind of put into words some of what I think about vitality.
Go for it.
Okay. Just need 1 minute to find it here. Oh, this is so good. Sensual joy from nerve ends conspiring to sing their rhythms in vital comfort, not blanket or escape, deep quiver of raw freshness. All is well, even here on the charred planet. Soft couch, memory of torment, in the eye of a storm still raging. This grin is not wild crazy. It spills from softness, as if the earth needed my feet through which to grow smiles upwards. Of course we belong. We belonging and belonging. There is no other universe we dropped from. This is home. Our cells are bound here. Carbon and oxygen entwined in the deep pleasure of this skin and all that roils beneath it. And then molecular unbinding as they dance in new pairings, and I cease. And maybe you don't see why I hang the rear view mirror at this odd angle, sideways glimpse of happy, living in tragic. But every now and then I also get to see the bright flash of my own delight as it moves through this aging body, young and sexy, aching and replenished, morose and exultant. And in that bright shining, the trees and my neighbors sing their starlight, even as many are sleeping. And oh, this is so good.
Wow. Well, I always like to give my guests the last word. Is there something else that you have to say? And then we will end the show. It's been a pleasure having you on, but I'm going to let you have the last word.
I want to thank you, Susan, for creating this opportunity to have people consider their own vitality, and because, you know, we're all in this together, and sometimes we just feel so alone or so incompetent, and there's so much power, there's so much connection available to us. So whether we go inward to find it or outward to find it, it's just waiting for us to reconnect.
Very special. You are a joy to have on the show. Thank you, Heather Finton.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show.